For more than 2 decades, there's been one show that people always bring up when they talk about realism on TV, and that show is HBO's The Wire. But what does that even mean, to be a realistic show? Today we're going to dig into that legend, look at the arguments for and against it, and ask a bigger question. Is its real power something else entirely?
And it all starts right here. This line, from the very first scene of the entire series, is the key to everything. It's not some grand speech, it's just resignation. It tells you right away that this isn't a story about heroes changing the world. It's about people trying to survive in a game where the rules are already set against them.
I mean, the show's reputation for being real is so powerful that it's literally used as a textbook. You've got courses at places like Harvard and Yale using The Wire to teach students about urban inequality, about politics, about the justice system. So what exactly makes this show so different?
Well, for years, critics, fans, academics, you name it, they've all said the same thing. This show is just brutally honest. It gives you this raw, unfiltered look at a modern American city, and it absolutely refuses to hold your hand. It's not about easy answers or happy endings. It's all about the harsh, complicated truth.
Okay, so how did they do it? How did The Wire build this incredible case for being so realistic? Well, it really all starts with the show's core philosophy.
This line from the great detective Lester Freeman is basically the entire show's mission statement. It's about the slow, patient, and sometimes incredibly boring grind of real police work. It's not about kicking down doors and dramatic shootouts. It's about paying attention to the details, about being patient and understanding that every little piece is part of a much, much bigger picture.
And that approach, it's just a world away from what we're used to seeing. Think about your typical cop show, right? You get a new case every week, you know who the good guys and bad guys are, and it all gets wrapped up in a neat little bow in under an hour. The Wire just blows that whole formula up. Cases take an entire season to unfold. The big dramatic moments, they're often just hours of tedious surveillance or fighting with your boss over paperwork. And heroes? Forget about it. They're just flawed people doing their best inside of broken systems.
This feeling of authenticity, it's not an accident. It's built on a foundation of real-life experience. You've got the creators. One was a crime reporter in Baltimore for years. The other was a homicide detective for 2 decades. They packed the show with all the tiny procedural details they knew firsthand. And they didn't just stop at the police. They looked at the whole city, the politics, the schools, the docks, the media. Teachers have said that Season 4's depiction of the school system is just frighteningly accurate. They even cast actual Baltimore locals, former cops and former criminals, to really ground the world in lived experience.
But, as strong as that case for realism is, it's not exactly airtight. In fact, a lot of people argue that this reputation for being a perfect reflection of reality might be a little overblown. So where does this perfect facade start to show some cracks?
And this is really the central debate that's been raging for years. Is it basically a documentary set in Baltimore, or is it something else? Because even the show's biggest fans will admit, there are definitely moments that make you go, would that really happen?
So the criticisms tend to focus on a few key things. First, you've got characters like Omar Little, everybody's favorite shotgun-wielding Robin Hood. As amazing as he is, a lot of people see him as more of a mythic, larger-than-life figure. Then there's the dialogue. It's brilliant, but it can also feel very literary, almost like you're reading a novel. And then, of course, there's the Season 5 plot, where a detective just invents a serial killer to get funding, which pretty much everyone agrees was a cockamamie move. And at the end of the day, real life is just messier and rarely has the neat, dramatic structure of a TV show. And all of this, it brings us to what I think is the real heart of the matter. Maybe, just maybe, arguing about whether or not it's realistic is kind of missing the point. What if the show is trying to hit a target that's actually deeper and more complex than just documentary accuracy?
This, right here, is why the show is considered so great. Its real power, its genius, isn't about perfectly recreating reality. It's about using the tools of fiction to explore these incredibly deep, messy, moral questions that come up when human beings are trapped inside broken systems.
Most crime shows are built on these really simple ideas. Cops versus robbers, good versus evil. The Wire throws all of that out the window. There are no perfect heroes, and there are no completely evil villains. Everybody is just a complicated, messy shade of gray. The real fight isn't just people against people, it's people against these giant, impersonal systems that chew them up and spit them out.
This quote just nails the show's worldview.
In the world of The Wire, everything is tangled up together. Justice and injustice, right and wrong, blame and excuse. They're not in separate boxes. They're all mashed together, and it is impossible to pull them apart. They're inextricable.
And there is no better example of this than the absolutely heartbreaking story of Randy Wagstaff in Season 4. He's a good kid, he tries to do the right thing. He's got adults all around him, cops, teachers, who are genuinely trying to help him. But then, through this chain reaction of one small mistake after another, of systemic failures piling up, their good intentions lead to an absolute catastrophe. And when the smoke clears, you can't point a finger at any one person and say, it's your fault. Everyone is to blame, and no one is. And that is the kind of moral complexity this show captures better than anything else.
So, this all leads us to the show's greatest achievement: how it uses the power of a fictional story to tell the massive, sprawling, interconnected story of an entire city.
There's this great academic term for it called fictional democracy. And the idea is pretty simple. It's a story that gives equal importance to everyone's point of view. The mayor trying to balance the budget is just as important as the kid on the corner trying to make it to the end of the week. There is no single main character. Instead, you get this rich tapestry that shows you how everyone's lives are connected and how a decision made in a fancy office can have devastating consequences down on the street.
You know, the creator, David Simon, he summed it all up perfectly himself. He said the goal was never to be 100% factual. The goal was to be plausible. It was to build a world that felt so real, so authentic, that everything that happened within it felt like it could have happened. And that's the standard it holds itself to.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. By blending all this together, the real and the fictional, the moral gray areas, the systemic failures, The Wire ends up hitting a much deeper, more resonant kind of truth. And it really makes you wonder, can a great fictional story, precisely because it embraces that complexity, sometimes tell us more about our world than a straight-up documentary ever could?